At the same time, the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana, you'll remember he delivered his maiden budget speech in Parliament yesterday. Well, eNCA's Monique Mortlock has been visiting various areas in and around Cape Town for a dipstick test, really, of the reaction to the budget speech. And she joins us now for an update. The other area of focus, of course, Monique, has been on the social wage and social security programs, particularly conversations about the basic income grant, which did not materialize, but there were adjustments to the grants that we currently have. My understanding is that you are about to have a conversation that focuses specifically on this aspect.
Yes, Tulas, we know that from what we've heard from the Finance Minister yesterday, that a bulk of that medium-term spending is going to sectors like learning and culture, debt service recovery costs, and also social development. And that's that social development will be getting 1 trillion rand of that spending, and 44 billion rand has been set aside for that COVID-19 social distress relief grant, which will be extended up until March 2023. And this relief grant is something that groups, advocacy groups like Black Sash has been calling for, not only for an extension but for an increase. And today they actually launched a very important report on the impact of the pandemic on children and especially needy children and those in need or at the risk of hunger and who are already facing hunger and poverty. But to chat to us a bit more about that, I'm speaking to Abigail Peters from Black Sash. Abigail, let's start with today's launch of that very important report. What were some of the key findings that came from that?
Well, we looked a lot at the processes that moms have to go through, and there are many difficulties that they have to endure because of hunger. We've seen that hunger has become a norm in our household, that children just have to bear and know that they have to live with hunger. There's just also the shame that comes with having to ask from a neighbor, having to ask from a family member, and the community knowing that your children are going hungry. There's clearly also seeing that the child support grant in itself cannot support not only the child but the household that the grant is going to. So the amount is really little in terms of being able to give everything that the child needs, because it doesn't only cover the child support grant. It covers many other aspects that pertains to the child and the household, because in many aspects it's the only form of income in the household.
Now, bringing it back to yesterday's budget speech, Black Sash's thoughts, were there any positives, some negatives? What more would you have liked to see?
Well, I think we're quite disappointed that the SRD grant has not been increased. I think for us, we are advocating that it can at least be increased to the poverty line, food poverty line, at 624 Rand, which would at least provide for some more wiggle room to be able to stretch in terms of money. Also, what we've found through our research is that the amount is just too little, and that was not even looking at the 350 Rand grant, but that was looking at the child support grant. That's why we're also saying that even the child support grant, a 20 Rand increase will not do much. We've interviewed caregivers with children and expressed to us a child just saying to a mother, "Mama, is there a piece of bread?" Imagining just hearing that voice from the child and your answer being that there isn't, because we actually have used all of the money of the grant to already see to the needs of the household. So that's really painful, also then coming through, not only through this research, but real stories that we see that we've been able to encounter.
Yeah. And finally, are you hopeful that seeing this cash injection, this 1 trillion Rand going towards social development, social services, are you hopeful that, because earlier my colleague Tulasi was speaking about how it's not enough just hearing the Finance Minister speaking about all this money that's going towards this department and that department, but it's actually the implementation, the on-the-ground implementation, and seeing its impact on communities, like the communities that Black Sash works with. Just your thoughts on that, on government actually using the money for good and it going to the necessary programs and the people, as you mentioned, the people who are so in desperate need of it.
Well, I think that's what we're also looking towards, seeing how the allocations will go in terms of where specifically it will be used within the system of the grants, because obviously there's the administration and actually the paying out of the grants. But it's important for us to also continue to push forward with our advocacy work, and we will continue to keep a close eye on that going forward.
Thank you very much. That was Abigail Peters, a paralegal and field worker here at Black Sash, just chatting to us about that very important report that was launched today, where more of those key recommendations will be released to the public, and Black Sash really just looking at the assistance that communities that have been hardest hit by the pandemic, what more they need, that child support grant is simply not enough, that increase of just 20 Rand simply not enough when you're looking at all these other costs that have been rising, and families who have lost jobs, who are struggling just with the bare minimum, simply unable to keep up.